The Central Intelligence Agency, or CIA, is one of the most powerful and secretive agencies in the world. But how did it come to wield such immense influence? What were the events that shaped it, and how did it grow from a small intelligence agency into a global force? In this video, we'll dive deep into the history of the CIA, from its early days in the aftermath of World War II to its controversial role in modern geopolitics. The origins of the CIA can be traced back to the chaos of World War II. In the midst of global conflict, intelligence was recognized as a critical tool for survival and victory. The United States had various intelligence agencies, but they were uncoordinated and inefficient. As a result, the U.S. government created the Office of Strategic Services, OSS, in 1942. The OSS was tasked with gathering vital information, conducting espionage, and supporting resistance movements against the Axis powers. It was an experimental agency, and its operations ranged from intelligence gathering to covert sabotage missions behind enemy lines. But by the end of the war in 1945, the OSS was disbanded. However, the need for a permanent, centralized intelligence agency became clear, especially with the rise of tensions between the US and the Soviet Union. The Cold War was dawning, and the need for intelligence was more critical than ever. In 1947, the National Security Act was signed into law, creating the CIA. The agency's mission was clear: collect intelligence on foreign governments, organizations, and individuals, provide national security assessments to policymakers, and engage in covert operations to safeguard U.S. interests around the world. The early years of the CIA were marked by its involvement in the fierce rivalry between the United States and the Soviet Union. One of the agency's first major covert operations came in 1953, when the CIA orchestrated a coup in Iran. The U.S. was concerned about Iranian Prime Minister Mohammad Mossadegh's nationalization of the country's oil industry, which threatened Western interests. The CIA's Operation Ajax successfully overthrew Mossadegh and reinstated the Shah of Iran, setting the stage for decades of U.S. influence in the region. As the 1950s and 1960s unfolded, the CIA became embroiled in numerous high-stakes operations. In 1961, the Bay of Pigs invasion was one of the most infamous failures in CIA history. The U.S. government, under President John F. Kennedy, attempted to overthrow Cuban leader Fidel Castro with a CIA-backed invasion by Cuban exiles. The operation was disastrous, and its failure was a major embarrassment for the agency, as well as for the Kennedy administration. Despite the Bay of Pigs failure, the CIA continued its work behind the scenes. During this period, the agency was involved in multiple operations across Latin America, Asia, and Africa, often in collaboration with local governments or rebel groups. Many of these operations aimed to prevent the spread of communism, a central goal during the Cold War. The Vietnam War would prove to be a turning point for the CIA. The agency was deeply involved in intelligence-gathering efforts and covert operations in Southeast Asia. The CIA supported the South Vietnamese government and its military, engaging in counterinsurgency operations against North Vietnamese forces and the Viet Cong. However, as the war dragged on and became increasingly unpopular, the CIA's role in the conflict came under scrutiny. The agency was also responsible for carrying out the infamous Phoenix program, a covert operation that targeted suspected Viet Cong sympathizers. The program was criticized for its use of torture, extrajudicial killings, and other human rights abuses. The events of the 1970s led to a major reckoning for the CIA. In 1975, the Church Committee, led by Senator Frank Church, conducted a series of hearings that exposed numerous illegal activities carried out by the CIA. These included domestic surveillance, assassination plots against foreign leaders, and the use of mind control experiments like MKUltra. In response to the committee's findings, the U.S. government enacted reforms to regulate the CIA's activities. The Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, FISA, was passed in 1978 to establish a legal framework for intelligence gathering, and the agency underwent significant restructuring to ensure greater oversight. By the 1980s, the CIA was focusing more on international terrorism and covert operations in the Middle East. One of the agency's most successful operations during this period was its support of the Afghan Mujahideen, the resistance fighters who were battling Soviet forces in Afghanistan. The CIA provided them with weapons, training, and funding in what became one of the largest covert operations of the Cold War. As the Cold War drew to a close with the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991, the CIA was faced with a changing world. No longer was the agency primarily focused on countering Soviet influence, it now had to adjust to new threats, including terrorism, regional conflicts, and the spread of weapons of mass destruction. The 1990s were marked by the emergence of new security challenges. The CIA was instrumental in the global war on terrorism, particularly after the bombing of U.S. embassies in Africa in 1998 and the attack on the USS Cole in 2000. But it was the attacks on September 11, 2001, that reshaped the CIA and its priorities. In the wake of 9/11, the agency's mission shifted dramatically. The CIA was tasked with hunting down Osama bin Laden and dismantling al-Qaeda, the terrorist group responsible for the attacks. The agency also expanded its operations to include the use of drones for targeted killings, surveillance programs, and deep intelligence operations in countries like Pakistan, Yemen, and Afghanistan. Today, the CIA operates in an increasingly complex and interconnected world. It continues to play a central role in counterterrorism, focusing not just on traditional spycraft, but on cyber operations, artificial intelligence, and advanced data analytics. The agency's role has expanded beyond just traditional intelligence gathering. Today, the CIA is involved in everything from disrupting criminal organizations to responding to emerging threats like cyber attacks and international misinformation campaigns. However, with these expanded powers, the CIA still faces significant scrutiny. Its use of drone strikes, surveillance programs, and covert operations often raises questions about legality and ethics. In an age of global transparency and privacy concerns, the CIA's actions continue to spark debates about its role in a democratic society. The history of the CIA is one of triumphs, failures, and moral dilemmas. From its controversial interventions in foreign governments to its vital role in global security, the CIA remains a cornerstone of American foreign policy. But its actions continue to be a source of both admiration and criticism. What do you think about the CIA's legacy? Is it a necessary protector of national security, or a shadowy force operating beyond the law? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the history of the CIA, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more. We'll see you in the next video.